All right, welcome back to Westeros.org on YouTube. Um, I, along with most every one of you, obviously have just watched through episode 4 of season 8, and it's called The Last of the Starks. It's written by David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, and directed by David Nutter. There's a lot of D's there all of a sudden. I thought I would start by commenting a bit briefly on last week's episode, which has been very controversial through the week, I'd have to say. Um, I realized that the scoring that I gave on the live stream when I wrote my written part the day after, sort of reflecting a bit more on it, um, came out even though with I said there's bonus dragon points, at least a few of them. It it ended up not reflecting the way I spoke of it. The huge problems that I did have with the ending. I mean, it's like, the whole Night King's death thing was really one big eye roll. So I did adjust that in the written review, and I think it just shows to some extent how the specific moments that you might find shiny during an episode certainly can make you feel, well, it wasn't so bad, especially when there weren't that much talking in the episode. Uh, it is always an advantage. It has been through these last seasons an advantage when characters aren't really talking that much. Just shouting orders. There's not that much you can do wrong with that kind of dialogue. When you get actual dialogue, much more can go wrong. Like this episode, um, not that much shiny, far fewer dragon scenes, and a lot of talking. I suppose there wasn't really much in the way of really atrocious dialogue. There wasn't any bad pussy, at least. But there was, while there were some nice character moments in the first half in particular, uh, it had a lot of problems stemming from the speed that they're moving at, and the way that it makes them force characters into uh, actions that feel like they really come out of nowhere. So for this one, I definitely have a lot more eye rolls than I've actually gathered during the previous 3 episodes, even if that was a very large eye roll last week for how they resolved the whole White Walker thing. And I know people speculated during the week that maybe this wasn't the end of the White Walker threat, but we certainly don't see any sign in this episode that there's anything lingering. So let's take a look at what happened in this episode. We start off with a huge funeral pyre. It's very nicely done, I think. I liked Jon's speech, uh, sort of the eulogy that he gives for the dead. Um, I know Kit Harington isn't the most, people's favorite among the actors, but I don't know. It works for me. It really does, actually. I thought Sansa giving Theon the Stark pin was a nice touch. That's sort of remembering some of the core bits of the characters that, it was important for him to be recognized as that actually being his family. We see Ghost, which is always nice. Poor Ghost got hurt. That's not so nice. And then we start getting the character problems for this episode, which is the Sansa immediately looking super suspicious about Dany. Um, just even in the funeral situation, and I mean, okay, she's been like that all the time, but they're just playing it very, very heavy-handed. Um, then we start getting some little weird bits and pieces, or the first of a few weird bits and pieces, which is when Bran and Tyrion are speaking, and Bran refers to how he was inspired to make the chair. We sort of see indirectly that he, I liked that one. He says when he references having seen this sort of chair before, aka he's got access to the whole of the past. And then he references that it is the same that Daemon Targaryen built for his crippled nephew 120 years ago. I suppose they must mean Daemon the Good. That's the only one that fits time-wise. And I guess he did have some nephews in Dorne. We don't know that any of them were crippled, but they decided to make that up. Tormund seems to tell everyone that Jon died and came back from the dead, and no one again bats an eye. This is perfectly normal around these parts. Admittedly, they did have a bunch of people come back from the dead last week, so maybe they got used to it. On the other hand, those seem to be, rather zombie-ish and bitey-ish, so... But no, they're not the least suspicious of Jon. Jon's just a really popular guy. Dany, now they decide to play up her looking at Jon being accepted by people and being cheered by people as something that really bothers her. When we see the conversation later on between Jon and Daenerys, she, on the other hand, puts it as, I see how people look at you and, they love you and so on. She doesn't really, with him, express any of the, I think, you're going to take my throne, which almost seemed to sort of be part of how she was looking there. But maybe it's just so that, Sansa will see her and Sansa will again think, oh my God, she is going to kill us all. We get Tormund's final rejection. Brienne, or rather, he sees that Jaime gets in between and then decides to drown his sorrows in even more drinking before he makes off with a Winterfell wench. So he's probably happy again, at least. And then the writers all of a sudden remembered that there used to be a thing in the books with Sansa and the Hound. So Sansa keeps giving him meaningful looks for a while, and then they go over and have a little talk. Very strange, really, when they clearly did not want to pursue this at all earlier, that this is sort of part of where we're wrapping different characters up. We need to have Sansa and the Hound. Felt a little peculiar. Maybe they just wanted that counterpart to then Gendry going off and proposing to Arya. Arya, by the way, who is practicing her archery, which she seems to be very good at as well, which makes you wonder why she felt the need to ninja leap in dramatically to kill the Night King last week. She could just have, snuck up more assassin-like and shot an arrow in him, a dragon glass arrow or whatever, or, fired or thrown her Valyrian steel dagger. But no, she had to leap in and yell beforehand so he would turn around and grab her, and you think it'd be over. And yes, there were a lot of problems last week. And then, of course, we have the big thing that revolves around this episode, which is Jon and his little secret, which Daenerys wants him not to reveal. And he, for some reason, feels that I really, really have to tell my family. It's a bit strange. He couldn't just take the example of his father, who seemed to feel that it was something that really needed to be kept secret for most of his life, for all of his life, really, despite the fact that he had a wife who got upset about it, because, she thought he had brought a bastard home. Jon not telling Sansa and Arya would do exactly nothing to their relationship. It feels forced. Even if Jon's supposed to be Ned 2.0, I don't know. I find it hard to buy. I think that this goes too much into them wanting elements of the Aegon storyline, wanting to put them into this sort of the final conflict, and because there you'd have somebody who would be recognized by people as potentially the rightful heir and having a stronger claim than Daenerys. So because of that, then Jon's secret has to come out into the open, has to be made much more of a thing, and more of a thing between him and Dany as well. Yeah, no, I'm bothered by how this is being handled, and it's such a major part of this season. And then we get this little war council where they're tallying up the dead. There's at least one Dothraki left. Although he removed some of the Dothraki forces, I didn't actually catch how many because he didn't say anything. He didn't say half, so I'm not sure how any of them were supposed to have survived, but apparently they did. And then they've got new allies. Yara has indeed managed to take back all of the Iron Islands, which, I guess Euron just fucked off and said, yeah, I'm not going to bother holding that. Don't need it for anything. So I wonder how many men he actually left behind. And then we have a random new Prince of Dorne who's promised his support. I wonder how did he do that before they beat the dead, or did he send a message afterwards? In that case, how did he find out so quickly? Because, Littlefinger is gone, or did he leave his jetpack to somebody else? And this is not the first thing that moved very, very fast during this episode. So, then we have, random appearance of Bronn. Speaking of moving fast, he just rides back, he shows up from King's Landing. I guess he's had time to move while they were fighting. And then apparently is just going to ride back down to lurk somewhere in the vicinity. And then we have the problem of the two Stark sisters. Sansa finds out from Jon, or Sansa, Arya, both find out from Jon that he is in fact Lyanna's and Rhaegar's child, and that he has a better claim to the throne. So Sansa immediately goes, oh yay, awesome, we have a better choice. And the oath that she swears to Jon not to reveal it, she turns around almost immediately and decides to tell Tyrion. There's no build-up of this. She's been given virtually no legitimate reason to be so incredibly suspicious of Dany. And yet, she breaks an oath to her beloved brother within what appears to be a couple of hours, because they give no sense of time passing. It's possible that time has passed because they're now ready to march out and march down to King's Landing, but you don't feel it. So there's no development here. She goes from learning it in one scene and revealing it in the next. Where's the drama in that? It's all false. It's like the false tension. It is false drama. And if Sansa can't keep her mouth shut enough, Arya has the opposite problem. Arya, who takes off and catches up with the Hound to ride down to King's Landing because she's got some unfinished business, aka she's got Cersei and the Mountain left on her list. Maybe you should have told someone about that in that little war council where Sansa was saying that, our men are so worn out, we can't expect them to fight again, and Dany wants Cersei gone immediately. How about Arya goes, hey, I'm a magical, mystical assassin who just managed to jump in from nowhere and kill the Night's King, so I can do stuff. Maybe you should let me try and assassinate Cersei first, and we'll see how that goes. No, none of that. I don't want to reveal to anyone that I can do these things. Okay, trade secrets, It doesn't make sense. You place these characters in positions where, if Arya is supposed to be in the middle of this, which I think is clear evidence that she's not supposed to be with the other people. She's not supposed to be able to tell her brother and her sister that she has this, ability possibly to get rid of Cersei. So that there's an option to, burning down all of King's Landing and whatever they're going to try and do to get a hold of her. But no, she's been forced in this position. She's been put up north with everyone else so that she could kill the Night King, and she's not going to tell them that she could do the same thing to Cersei. And then we get the very, very sad moment of Jon sending ghosts. I like the moment between Jon and Tormund, actually. But I don't know about the whole sending ghost away north because, he doesn't belong here. Maybe echoing some of what we have in the books with the children, saying that, they're moving further away, fading from the realms of men. The direwolves will be gone eventually. This is, men taking over. Maybe I've always, thought that Jon Jon's destiny is, beyond the wall somewhere. So maybe Ghost at least is going there. It's a touching scene at least, and poor Ghost with half his ear. And then Varys is another problem, just like Sansa. He seems to basically on the fact that Daenerys, once he learns from Tyrion that there is another option and that people might start turning against Daenerys, he decides that he's concerned about it. That he's concerned that she'll take it the wrong way, and then, she doesn't want to share the throne with Jon. So what reason has he been given? He's so worried about the realm, and as we shall see, later on, he is indeed very, very worried about the realm, and decides that Daenerys wanting very badly to kill people after her fleet has been attacked and yet another dragon has been killed is, it's not at all reasonable. Of course, we have to talk about the attack on the fleet and the ridiculous circumstances of that attack. First of all, Daenerys apparently cannot spot these ships while she's out pleasure flying or whatever she's doing, nor can the dragons, because the ships seem to be coming from sort of around, hidden behind an island, or hidden behind, I guess, Dragonstone, coming behind there, and somehow they are able to fire and get very good shots on the dragons without being in view. These dragons are also very, very vulnerable for their size. Obviously, we talked about that last season with Viserion. There, people, it's a magic spear, and magic Night King and all of that. These are not magical ballistas or scorpions, but they still penetrate the chest of Rhaegal, no problem. Meraxes, when he was shot down over Dorne, they had to shoot him in the eye, which was the only vulnerable part on such a large dragon. Maybe they're not quite that size yet, but the scales should be pretty hard. But no, they had to make it pretty easy for them. And then somehow when Daenerys flies against the whole fleet of ships there, and they fire a volley of massive spears, arrows, whatever, at her, they manage to miss. And she doesn't really do much avoiding either. But, and then they start firing on the ships. They're reloading these things very, very fast, from the first volleys on the dragons, then to shooting at Drogon, and then shooting at the ships. And these things act like the most effective ship-to-ship weapons ever, just blasting through those ships and destroying the fleet completely. I wonder why no one invented these before. I mean, why did they have to think about dragons to invent these amazing weapons that shoot from ships, should have a massive recoil? Apparently, the ships that you shoot from don't, get unsteady from it, and they're completely steady in the water as well. Fantastic weapons. Somebody should have invented them long ago. So yeah, we have a complete disaster there, and the news, of course, travel incredibly fast up to Winterfell, where Sansa and Brienne and Jaime learn about it, and Sansa's looking a little bit pleased, isn't she? But worrying that. And then Jaime takes off and apparently plans to catch up with everyone somehow before it's too late. That poor horse is going to have to run very, very, very fast from Winterfell. I think they said earlier in the episode that it would take Jon a fortnight to march the army down, or something like that. Yeah, I wonder how fast Jaime's gonna ride. What else? Then we go to the final scenes outside of King's Landing, in the middle of nowhere. King's Landing kind of looks vaguely like, and obviously the entire Astapor that they showed being attacked sort of in the middle of the desert. There's nothing around, okay? There's been a war, I guess some of it was burnt when they were attacked, but it's a little too empty. It looks more like, the castle in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. At least nobody started talking in pseudo-French and insulting the Neats. They probably should have. It would have been better. And Cersei gets all emotional when Tyrion talks to her. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's the pregnancy hormones. Yeah, we'll put it down to that. And then Missandei loses her head, but not before giving her final words as Dracarys. So I guess she's on board with what Dany would like to do. So that's what happened, and I've already indicated some of my problems along the way. We'll see, I made some more commentaries here that I will go back to here. Like I said, there are some nice character moments in the first half, but it is very heavy-handed with the whole Daenerys, Sansa, Arya interactions. Oh, we don't trust your queen. Okay, why don't you trust her? Maybe Jon should have asked. But no, they just don't. She's going to be evil, because we know it. She's a Targaryen. Okay, maybe you're right. Certainly, the ending shows a very, very upset Daenerys, who is clearly in the mood for some fire and blood. So yes, no doubt Sansa and Arya was right all along. Now she's going to, she's not going to be doing any more negotiating with Cersei, that's for sure. But they haven't seen anything like that. They have no reason. And Varys starts doubting and being all, maybe, Jon's the better person. Even before the attack on the fleet, and then he has this talk with Tyrion, which seems to suggest that, I'd like to go and assassinate her. Is he going to hire Arya? Is that going to be the twist, perhaps, that instead of assassinating Cersei, Arya is going to be assassinating Daenerys? And of course, Varys might not know that she's a magical, mystical assassin, because he doesn't seem to know that much any longer. And then I do think that we can stop killing dragons and hurting wolves now. I do not approve. Poor little Rhaegal did not deserve that at all. Missandei being shorter, whatever, but dragons and wolves with half ears, no. Eye rolls, yes, I gathered quite a few of those for this week. What bloody nephew of Daeron? I mean, they wanted a historical reference so that Bran could, again, remind us that he lives in the past. But we had to invent a crippled nephew. Okay. The whole secret thing that had to be told and then revealed in the same episode. That's not how you build tension, and it doesn't... I'm not sure it's very believable that Jon actually would tell, given that he has Ned's example of not telling. We have a random new Prince of Dorne. Woo! Where did he come from? What house is he from? And he doesn't even have a name. Oh well, whatever. We probably won't hear anything more about him. Sansa and Arya's behavior towards Dany. It's, Sansa's being a little bitch. The looks that she's giving in the beginning, and the sourness, and the way, it is so over the top. Varys' quick turning as well. It's, even if, we have the whole thing that he's so concerned about the realm, he really needs to pick a ruler and stick with it. And then, oh no, Jon can't stand up to Daenerys. He's too weak. Maybe not. You don't know yet, do you? And Dany, the whole scene with the fleet is like the ending last week. One massive eye roll of, oh, we need to set up this absolute disaster. We need to remove one more dragon, we need to remove the fleet, and we need to kill Missandei. All of this to further weaken Daenerys and make us think that the war, she's not going to be able to defeat Cersei. And I somehow doubt that Cersei is sitting on the Iron Throne at the end of this season. So it feels like a false tension, especially when it is done so quickly and just in such a short span of time. Um, Favorite bits, did I have any of those? Well, we did see some dragon flying. Dragon dying is not on that list though, so those kind of cancel each other out. I have to say that there was one line in this episode that, even though it didn't get a big laugh from the surrounding audience because of the moment that it was delivered, but Tormund's "which one of you cowards shit in my pants?" That does feel like Tormund. I think that on the whole, Jon and Tormund were my favorite parts of this episode, and seeing Ghost again, poor little Ghost being sent away just like Nymeria. The main takeaways is that Arya keeps too many secrets and Sansa can't keep them at all, which means that the Stark sisters together are two big fuck-ups. Speculations, well, like I said, is Varys going to enlist Arya to kill Sansa? Sorry, I would like that actually, to kill Daenerys. Possible. Missandei dying and being a catalyst for, you know, Dany going dark. It could be part of it. I do think that Missandei dying would be something that we see in A Dance with Dragons, that Missandei is one of those connections to her humanity that she has left. And, you know, the ending is not very promising there. She thinks of herself, you know, I'm like the dragons, I'm made for destruction. So I think that this is a direction that the books will go in as well. Dany being damaged by her past, what she has gone through, and that she will need to be a weapon in the fight against the others, and that makes it hard to come back from that. On the other hand, she hasn't done that much fighting herself so far, and it's all rolled on so quickly. I mean, this is they needed to take more time with this. They needed to have any chance of selling this. It needed much more time, much more development, and they were not interested in sticking with it and giving it what it needed. So this episode, it's a tough one to. I said there isn't that much of the shiny. There are some nicely executed moments, but plot-wise and everything, I'd have to put this one down at, gosh, 5.5 is probably where I end up with this one. There's just too many structural problems, and there have been really for a very long time, but now that you're coming to the end stage, you want things to come together, you want them to work well, somehow figuring that they could, you know, pull something nice out of it when they're compressing it. But in this case, it's actually not working, because I remember I did some Buffy references last week, and today I thought maybe an Angel reference. The last season of Angel got very intense in the back half because they had found out that they were going to be cancelled partway through, I think, shooting, and they sort of moved everything that was going to happen in. The thing is that it had been set up quite well during several seasons, and the characters didn't have to start acting all out of order or take new situations into account. So that intensity just heightened the tension, the stakes, made it all feel very intense in a good way, whereas this just feels hurried. And I guess I'm going to wrap up like last week by looking at some comments. So we'll see what we have on the other little tablet here. See if we have any interesting questions. I will unfortunately have to go down to the end, I think, because there's a lot of them. Gosh, yes, I will have to catch up on some questions later as well, but I'll try and scroll through a few of these as well. Um, yes, I suppose I do assume that there's some kind of intent, but no, I don't assume that there's intent on any higher level. What the intent that there is that they want certain things to happen, and that they will shoehorn characters into situations to make those happen. I saw somebody commenting during the week that the last episode was an example of sort of backwards writing. They decided what events they wanted, what scenes they wanted, and then manipulated things to get those. This feels much the same. Um, yes, no, the Gendry Rivers, that's right. Yes, I guess he's a little confused about that point, huh? Um, that was a nice touch, the way Daenerys handled that. That actually showed some cleverness. In fact, more cleverness than the smartest person I ever know, according to Arya, aka Sansa, has ever shown. Sansa has just really shown that she can look very surly. Um, um, yes, everyone is a little damaged at this point. This is a very good point. I mean, Sansa should recognize that what she has been through, or somebody should at least try and tell her that, look, what you have been through has. I mean, she's telling the Hound, actually. She in this very episode, she tells him that I would still be a little bird if those things hadn't happened to me. So now I'm not. I am very ruthless, and I'm smiling about the fact that I set hounds on Ramsay. Maybe that's what she's recognizing in Dany. Yeah, she's had a rough time. I had a rough time and it turned me into a little psycho, so she's probably had a rough time and it's turned her into a little psycho too, so I don't trust her. Oh, maybe that's what we're supposed to take out of it, which means that we probably don't want Sansa around either, because she's gonna go, start raving mad. Ha, start raving mad. That's a good one. Um, what else? What else? Um, no, we have a lot of butchered characters. This is absolutely true. Um, how do the Unsullied reproduce? I'm actually more concerned about the fact of how the Dothraki reproduce. Maybe with the horses that were left or something, because there really shouldn't have been any of those left. And somehow Grey Worm commanding the Unsullied is still alive. That is quite the feat. But as we saw last episode, you can be almost killed like 10 times, like Brienne, and being absolutely buried in whites, and you still survive if they want you to survive. Plot armor, it's awesome. You should try some. Um, no, no, clearly no one uses scouts for anything. Not even when you have somebody who can scout from Dragonback do you actually ask them to, hey, keep an eye out. There could be danger. I don't know. I'm just up here, pleasure flying. No worries. Um, Prince Bob of Dorne. Yes, that's probably what his name is. Prince Bob of Dorne. We will assume so. Um, of no house, probably. Um, and yes, there should have been a Daeron alive, as I'm pretty sure that it would fit Daeron the Good being alive. I'm not sure what he was doing, constructing wheelchairs for people when he should be ruling his realm. So, hey, maybe Daemon Blackfire would have made a better king. Oh God. It made you think of that Troy from that movie when we see King's Landing like that. Oh, please. Oh, Lord, don't mention that. I actually haven't been able to watch through that movie. And it's like, it used to be number one on the list why David Benioff shouldn't be allowed to ever, be involved in making anything ever again. Game of Thrones has since then overtaken that, but, butchering the Iliad is a capital offense as well. And God, that was bad. Mm. Yes, I guess the budget really made to maybe they couldn't show more of King's Landing because they had to show Ghost this time, since he was being sent off, and they felt it was a little too harsh to just send him off without showing him at all. So that probably ate up the budget for King's Landing. Some Hunt for the Red October next level shit. I have to admit I haven't actually seen the Hunt. Well, I have probably, but I don't remember it. But I'm presuming this is about the fleet being destroyed. Yes, the dragons are indeed much, much too vulnerable. They should be, if they wanted to size them up this much, they probably should have made them a little more um, armored as well. Their scales should be pretty tough, but no. That would, make it impossible for them to remove enough dragons to make you think that this is, a fight with even odds. Sansa pimping out girls. No, I don't think so. I don't think she sent them over there actually. But the look that she gives the Hound is like, oh yeah, the writers just remembered that I'm supposed to have kissed him way back when. I'll go and have a talk to him, and I'll tell him how I sent the hounds on my last husband. How sweet. I guess that's, her. Maybe that's her way of flirting these days. I would believe it. She's kind of weird. Please talk about Gendry and Arya. Well, poor Gendry. Gets made lord and turned down for marriage in the same evening. He seemed very pleased to be made a lord, even though he doesn't know how to do it. Arya not taking him up on it obviously fits Arya, the whole "that's not me" bit. They brought that back again, and that's probably the sort of path that she has. She is a lone wolf. But I guess, Gendry's gonna go off and mope somewhere, probably. Maybe, well, not together with Tormund, because Tormund's going off north. But they can be unlucky in love in their separate directions. And now Brienne is unhappy too, after Jaime is going to be riding very, very, very fast for King's Landing. Just after, starting to shag her and all of that. Too bad, huh? Let's see what else is showing up down here. Scroll, 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 scroll. Oh, I can go straight down. No, I can't. Yes, Bronn, Lord of Highgarden. Yes, because we managed to eradicate the Tyrells entirely, so we need somebody new there. I'm very much over Bronn. I've been over Bronn for a very long time. Him popping out like, all of a sudden like that with. I guess they decided, at Winterfell they didn't need any security any longer. Everyone's drunk, so he could just waltz in there. I mean, I could see Dany getting emotional with Jon, asking him not to tell anyone. I think the weird thing is that contrast between, that they want her to be that vulnerable at the same time as immediately switching back to, okay, you didn't tell, you're not agreeing, and then, it's all gonna go to hell. On the other hand, she's probably perfectly right. Look at how Sansa and Arya are acting, and look at how Tyrion or Varys more are acting. As soon as they find out that there is another candidate, she's like, "Yep, bye, done with you." Hmm. Let's see. Do I think that Drogon will survive? They certainly seem very fond of cutting the budget by getting rid of the dragons. Probably not before the last episode, though. Kind of hoping that there would be some dragons around still, but maybe maybe that's a complication that that you can't really have in the new Westeros, whatever, you know, it's going to be after the end of all the wars. Maybe a dragon would be awkward to have around. On the other hand, you know, George's intentions, you know, I don't think he would shy away from awkward. I think, let me see what time we have here. Well, I've been going on with this for quite a while now, so I think I will be wrapping it here. I did manage to at least answer a few comments this week, and I'll try and manage a few on the video as well afterwards this week. I'm going to be dead tomorrow. The only thing I'll try to do tomorrow is add commentary to the episode guide, like we've done for the previous 3 weeks, basically trying to sort of process things a bit more in a bit more of an awake state, taking in some of the commentary from around the internet. It's certainly interesting to see how much more divisive the show has become, with people. I've had a few people saying that after the last episode that yeah, you called it years ago. They don't know what they're doing, and I think that the solutions that they're coming up with now were really, I mean, you could see the lack of understanding of major elements of the story from the point where they decide to change the House of the Undying completely. And I also think that is why I wasn't as let down after the last episode. Why, you know, my review was, oh my god, this is so terrible, and you know, this is a one, because my expectations have been lowered every season, and you know, the fact that they can still manage to underwhelm me, given how low my expectations are, is pretty darn impressive. They're actually pretty good at being underwhelming. And on that note, I will close the stream for tonight. See you next week.